Hi, Run Your Story family. This is Greg Gaillard with Run Your Story, where every story needs to be heard. And I'm thrilled to welcome you to a truly special episode. Today, the spotlight is on someone very dear to us all, the voice behind the podcast, Allison Gaillard. Kristen Rather and Meredith Nation sit down with Allison to explore her long-anticipated and inspiring run story. Allison often says she's more comfortable asking the questions, but as you listen to her journey, you'll discover the deep passion she has for the running community. She opens up about the motivation behind starting this podcast, including the profound influence of my sister, Jamie, whose battle with leukemia inspired not just the name of the podcast, but its very purpose. Allison also shares her personal journey from overcoming postpartum depression and grappling with a negative self-image in running to embrace cycling, triathlons, and long-distance running. She found strength and joy in movement and a supportive community along the way. You won't want to miss the powerful mantras she shares, which keep her moving forward when the going gets tough. Her story is a true testament to resilience and the joy that can be found in pushing through adversity. And speaking of mantras, we're excited to have My Race Tats as our sponsor this month. I remember how during each of our son's swim meets, Allison would write motivational phrases on his arm to remind him of his strength, purpose, and the amazing person that he's become. But even with a permanent marker, the words would fade too quickly. Don Oswalt of My Race Tats noticed a similar problem, and he decided to create a product that would be waterproof, sweatproof, and not peel or rub off during your race. We all know that when you're in the moment and things are getting tough, that your mind needs reminders to keep going and never give up. So, boost your confidence and inner strength by heading over to runyourstory.com, click on the link on the front page to take you to myracetats.com, and you'll receive 15% off your order. Today's episode is especially meaningful as it's being released on our 20th wedding anniversary. I could not be more proud of Allison and the incredible impact she's made by uniting this running community in such a special way. All right, friends, lace up those running shoes, get ready, get set, and go run with my wife and her remarkable run story.
All right, so we are here with Allison of the Run Your Story podcast, and we get to interview her and hear about her run story. So, Allison, go ahead. Tell us your run story.
So let me just go ahead and say that I was forced into this against my will. Let me say this. My friends are bad influences, and here we are.
Same could be said about you, because I've been talked into a few things. And let me just say, you are not tied to a chair at any point in time right now.
Oh, okay. She just wants to clarify that. Okay. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I don't like sitting on this side of the table, FYI. So fair. But I would say the reason why we're doing it is when it's released on the 14th, that is Gray and I's 20th anniversary. And so he has been a part of my run story from the very beginning, and he's helped me make me who I am today, both as a person and as a runner. So this is as much my story as it is a tribute to him and a thank you. So happy anniversary, Gray. You get to edit this podcast.
What a great gift.
What a great, I'm so giving. And Runner Story wouldn't be what it is without him. He gives so much to it. And I say I get to do the fun part, except for this part right here. But he enjoys editing and learning about the running community. And this podcast has helped him become the runner that he is. So here we are. But yeah, so just so people know, I was not raised in a running family. I am from a very small town in Mississippi. And I thought running was for Olympians. I thought only Olympians ran marathon. I didn't know people signed up for races. I didn't even know that was a thing. I played sports because that was an outlet for me and a safe haven because home life was abusive. And so I knew that no one could hurt me when I was playing sports. And I ran because that's what I saw Rocky do in the movies. As a boxer, he ran. And so I thought, well, he's doing it, and I should probably do that too. Not that I was a boxer, but so I ran just in my grandparents' field or country roads. I didn't know that was called trail running, but I ran whenever I wasn't playing a sport. And then fast forward, married, I'm a stay-at-home mom, and I really got into a funk, and I had really bad postpartum. And I just want to say this for moms out there who run with their kids, just keep going. Do it. You are doing amazing things. And I love being passed by a mom with a stroller. It's so encouraging because I know, one, it's good for you and your baby, but it's so good mentally and physically for the mom. So dads too, but really for moms. So, and it's something that Kristen, you and I have talked about, how women's health, especially after pregnancy, is just kind of, you're thrown out there and be like, good luck. You're good. Yeah. So I just thank you for bringing your kids along. But it actually wasn't until we moved to Vermont and we had the opportunity to live up there that something in there was sparked again to be active. And I started to feel like my former self, meaning I was finding joy in things again. And I loved my kids. I loved my husband, but no one tells you about depression and postpartum and all of that. So we would go hiking in Vermont. We hiked mountains, and being in New England's really cool because people tend to walk a lot wherever they're going. And so, of course, it's in August and you get to wear a cardigan because it's nice. But it really was amazing. And I started to feel like, wow, I was eating healthy. That's the other great thing about New England, is that there's a lot of restaurants and a lot of people that grow their own food. And Gray and I really got educated on taking care of ourselves and how you have this one body and this one life, and you got to make the most of it. And so really just started loving it up there, and we thought that's where we were going to settle. And then my sister-in-law, so Gray's sister, was diagnosed with leukemia and fought a really hard fight. And we were already going to go to Orlando for Christmas one year, and she called us and said, I'm going to need you guys to come sooner because I don't know that I'm going to make it to Christmas. And of course, we were heartbroken, and so we flew out as soon as we could, and we spent Christmas in Jamie's hotel room, in her hospital room, full of Christmas decorations. And for a moment, you forgot that she was sick and that she had leukemia. And she had told us that they had done all they could do. But again, we were thankful for that gift that we had. And the next few days, she started to get worse. And so at the age of 26, she made the decision to go into hospice. Wow. And so then Gray and I had already been talking as Jamie over that course of the year of, do we move back to Alabama to be with family? We were thinking we could go and help take care of Jamie. And we loved Vermont and we loved the people that were up there. But we were also like, do we need to be with our family? What do we need to do? And so we battled with that, and then ultimately we decided to move back. So we talked with Gray's family and decided to move back. And in that time, Jamie had said goodbye to us. And when we were at her funeral, it was said that one of the things that she asked people when she first met them was, tell me your story. Tell me about yourself. And so that's always just stuck with me, stuck in the back of my head. And so that's been planted there, obviously. And so fast forward, we moved back to Jackson, Alabama. And I had told Gray, I said, I've loved being active. I've loved doing this. I don't want to go back to depressive Allison, not doing anything, not being active. Well, my father-in-law, Pops, was an avid cyclist, and he had been doing a lot of cycling all over the state of Alabama, and especially trying to raise funding for leukemia. And so I picked up cycling. And so we went all over the state. We did Pelham for a Cure, Ride Yellow, Bow Bikes Bama. I throw that in for you because you both are Auburn fans. So we also did Hot 100 at Tuscaloosa. And so it was just amazing memories that we got to do. And I'll never forget when he took me to go get fitted for my bike. And it was an incredible experience. And I'm still friends with a lot of those cyclists today. And I had also been praying for mentors and for women. I'm a full believer in community, a full believer that we should be surrounded by people that are in different seasons of life. So I knew I needed to be around women who had already raised their kids. I knew I needed to be around women who were in the same season that I was in, but then also some that were younger. And there's not a lot that goes on in Jackson, Alabama, but when it does, they go big. And so we were at a parade, and my friend Lizbeth, our boys were in the same grade, she was like, hey, Allison, you should come do Couch to 5K with us. And I was like, I don't know what that is, Elizabeth. And she was like, we're training for a 5K. And I was like, absolutely not. And she was like, well, why not? And she was, you cycle? I can cycle 100 miles, but do not tell me to go run from my front door to my mailbox because I can't do it. And she's like, yeah, you can. Yeah, you can. Just come out and try. And so I met up and I first saw the group of women, and it was just so many different ages and backgrounds. And right then and there, I was like, I'm supposed to do this. And so that was incredible. We trained and we ran and we went from Fulton, Alabama to Thomasville, and would come down here to Mobile to run bigger races. And we did life together and Christmas, holidays, and we were raising our kids together. And it was just, we volunteered together. We put on a race in Jackson. It was absolutely amazing. And I'm still very good friends with those women. They've left such a mark and helped me become the woman that I am. And I'm forever grateful to that community and to the community of Jackson, because I still go there and it still feels like home. So it's a beautiful place with amazing people. And then I was like, you know what? If I can do a 5K and a 10K, I want to do a half. And then I got to where I was becoming obsessed with running, and it became my identity. And if I wasn't hitting the platform, if I wasn't hitting the times I wanted, then that was where my worth was in. And then I got put into physical therapy, and my amazing PT, who should have been Kristen at the time, but we didn't know each other. I was in PT, and my physical therapist, after evaluating me, was like, you have to stop doing everything for 1 month. Your body was just so inflamed. I had no mobility. I was just trashing my body with all the running I was doing. And I remember feeling so defeated of what do I do now? And so I came home and I was talking to Gray, who has been my biggest supporter and knows that movement is medicine for me, mentally, physically, spiritually. I have to move in some way. And so we had a very hard conversation, which was, yeah, you've missed a lot. I had 2 kids, was being a wife, going back to school. And he was just like, you got to reprioritize. And so I had a come to Jesus meeting, so they say, and I really started praying about it. And I thanked my Heavenly Father for what running had given me, which was community. And I said, if I never run again, thank you. Thank you for this opportunity. Thank you for the people that you've given me. But if I do run again, it won't be for myself. It will be for something more. And was going through PT. I was a very good patient, Kristen, just so you know. Very good patient.
I found that hard to believe.
It was so good. So we were going through things, and I still hadn't been released to really do anything, but eventually got on the treadmill, and I'd get to run maybe 10 minutes. And we'd reevaluate, do other exercises. Then eventually we were working things up, and then she said, you get to go outside, but only a mile. And that's it. Nothing more. And as most runners know, you want to do more. You're feeling better. But I stuck to it. And as I was running, Camille Place came to mind. And Camille Place is actually now it's a home for survivors of human trafficking. But at the time, it was a dream that was being built. And so I came home and I told Gray, I said, I think I'm going to get to run again. And I think I'm going to run for Camille Place. And he said, that's great. Let's do it. So we reached out to the director, the now director, Chris, who's a great friend of ours. And I said, I want to run for Camille Place. But this also meant that I got to do triathlons again, because if you can bike and run, you can swim. And so
That's not true. But go ahead.
So we had a tri-suit made. And again, I was keeping that focus of that I wasn't running for me. I was running for others. And so the cool thing was that the thing in human trafficking that the advocates have are this big red X, because we're trying to end human trafficking. And so we had this really cool tri-suit made, which I still have, and it had Camille Place on it with a big red X. And how many triathletes, as we're standing in line to get ready for our swim, would ask me, hey, what's the big red X for? What's Camille Place? And it was just like, this is why. this is what I'm running for. And still to this day, when I run big running events, I'll look around and wonder if there's a survivor of human trafficking running with us, because, wow, it's just one of the things I think about. So fast forward, and we moved to Mobile, Alabama, and I would have never guessed that I would have ran the halves that I have, that I would get to be an ambassador for Fresh Junkie Racing, and that they would pick someone like me who's one of the slower runners and represent them. But it's a huge honor. And just to be able to be a part of community again, and to run, and to get to do all the things that I get to do with people that I get to do it with. So that's where we're at.
That's cool.
It's an amazing story. Didn't know all of that, did you?
I didn't know all that.
I think that your listeners are going to be very pleased that you agreed to do this.
We're going to learn a lot about you.
Yeah.
We
Great.
already have learned a lot.
And I think it was a very good story of perseverance, and it's amazing. Wow. I didn't know all of those things. So what inspired you to start the podcast?
I thought this question might come up. I read a book once, and they said in moments that you can't explain, that you just know that you're supposed to do something, that's called a holy hunch. And that's what I would call this podcast. I was driving. It was one of those beautiful crisp mornings with the windows down. Don't have to have the air on. Windows are down. It was a beautiful day. I was driving down Dolphin, and I was just so grateful for everything, I guess. And so driving down and pulled into a parking lot, and it was just like this moment of, this is what you're supposed to do. I knew it was going to be called Run Your Story. I knew that it was going to be a twofold mission, which is, with Run Your Story, our goal is to deepen the roots of the running community, because yes, I run, and yes, I am a runner, but that's not all of who I am. That's not my entire identity. And there's more to me than just hitting the pavement. But we have to know what that is. We have to know each other's stories. And then the others to be a resource, because how many times have someone said, oh, I can't do that. I can't run. Well, why can't you? So there's too many barriers that we put up around our own selves. And so we wanted to be a resource that we can say, hey, go listen to Run Your Story and hear what other runners do. Hear their stories, because I definitely say if I can run, then anybody can run.
Mm-hmm.
So I was like, whoa, okay. So I messaged Gray, and I was like, I think I'm supposed to do a podcast. Here's what it's going to be called, and here's what it's for. And his response was, yes, let's do it. We'll talk about it when you get home. I'm the dreamer, the wild child of our family, and he's the studious, the anchor. And so I had a feeling he would say, no, that's crazy. And I was hoping he would say, no, that's crazy. He didn't. And we got home, we talked about it. He's like, I've always seen you doing a podcast. And I was like, really? Yeah, that's what I said. I was like, you didn't want to ever share that with me?
Yeah.
And then I said, you know what? We really need advice. And so Brad Hill, who's one of the pastors here at Mars Hill, he has a podcast where he interviews people for the outdoors. And it's just really cool. And so I went up to him one Sunday, and I was like, Brad, here's what I think I'm being led to do. Here's the questions I'm starting to work on. Here's the mission. And he was like, I think it's great. And I was like, no, not the answer.
Nobody's telling you.
No one's telling me no. And so I was like, you know what? We're going to continue to pray about this. And so I did. And then I started going to friends, went to you, Kristen, and was like, hey, what do you think about this podcast? What are some questions you'd want to ask? Went to Sarah Nell, and she rephrased some questions for me, which was great. Talked to my running mom, Kristen, and she was like, yeah, I think it's great. You should go for it. And Erica Span, and there was just a plethora of other people, and nobody was saying no. And I was really hoping somebody would be like, there's already a podcast out there like that. We don't need that. I don't listen. What's a podcast? But it didn't happen. And so Gray and I quickly realized we need to go ahead and pull the trigger and buy equipment off of Amazon, because we had no idea what we were doing. And here we are.
I think that's great. I do. I think Run Your Story has been exactly what your twofold mission has been. It's really brought the community together. I've seen runners that I've listened to their podcast that I had absolutely no idea what their story was. And it's just been inspiring. I've caught myself crying on a Wednesday morning as I listen.
Me too.
And I'm trying to get ready for work just because of the stories that I hear from these runners. So
I heard a guy talking at one of the group runs I went to a few weeks ago, and I said, I know you. You were on the podcast. I would have not known who he was from Adam, but I recognized his voice from listening to his podcast. So I got to meet him and talk to him. And your story is very inspiring, and this podcast is very inspiring.
And it's done exactly. I mean, the running community is the best community. Everybody said that. We're all trying not to be emotional here. But Run Your Story has really brought the running community together, is what I feel.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you.
So what lessons have you learned from running?
Oh, find your community, and community is everything. So one of the things that I learned is when Meredith shared her story, she talked about her knee surgery and how she felt she couldn't be a part of that community anymore. And that was heartbreaking. I didn't really know Meredith back then. I think we knew of each other, but not how well we know each other now. But man, I really wish I would have known Meredith, because she cooks for me now. And so I would have went over there and been like, hey, Meredith, you're going to have to eat terrible food because I'm going to cook for you. But it's moments like that I hope that people are like, you're a part of the community, whether you're on the pavement, whether you're volunteering, if you're injured, no matter what, you are still a part of this community. And that goes hand in hand with support system. I have the best support system, whether it's been with my kids being at finish lines with me, waiting for me, or it's been Gray, or it's been friends. I love that we go on girls' weekend running trips and we're there cheering for each other. And I really say one of the biggest lessons is be a part of the community. Don't just feel like, oh, I can't do that yet, or I can't do that at all. And if you don't have that, then create it. We live in the Saraland area and we travel to Mobile a lot. You grew up in Satsuma and we're in our own bubble, but we are like, you know what? Our community is that way. And so I guess another lesson would be sometimes you got to find that inner grit and get through it. And then other times you have to give yourself grace. And sometimes we're like, man, I'm not a runner anymore because I didn't get that run in, or that run was terrible. Well, as we know as runners, any run is better than no run. But life happens. And one of the things that I've really tried as I've reprioritized and as I try to tell people that are new to running, and it's something that we've all said, and that is that you do life and you put running into life. You don't refocus everything around running. So we're not an Olympic athlete. It's not our full-time job. And so we get to do this. We get to have fun with it, and we get to do community together. So have community, be a community, and be part of the community. I think it's the biggest lessons.
I think some of us probably can guess your answer to this question.
Oh, okay.
But what would be your favorite race and why? It wouldn't have something to do with the causeway, would it? Maybe.
Or the sweatshirt.
Or sweatshirt.
12K.
Battleship 12K.
Yeah.
It is such a great race. That race, for me, magical things happen. It's always been something special. Peyton's senior year was for Coast Guard. He wants to go into Coast Guard. It was our very first podcast interview. Was Battleship 12K. It's put on by Fresh Junkie. And it's just an amazing event. And there's so many people that come and have a good time. And you get that American flag at the end and you go into the finish line and it's incredible. Okay, but also let me say this. So that's my favorite Fresh Junkie race.
Okay.
My favorite local race is going to be a tie between the Women's Resource Center, This Is Life Run, and the other would be Brawls Across the Causeway, because those two organizations give back so much to our community. The Women's Resource Center, they do so much for families and into our schools for our students. And Brawls Across the Causeway, they help people in our community that are battling cancer. And that's absolutely phenomenal. It stays here in our community. And then definitely like Mississippi Gulf Coast. Yeah. It's a great girls' weekend getaway. And then the other would be Double Bridge. Obviously, that's a good one. So I have them in different categories.
All good races.
All good races.
All good
Yes,
races.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So before all these races, I'm sure you have a pre-race routine, right?
Absolutely not. I don't know. We've bunked together, do I?
I don't know. You do something.
Well, okay. So I do flat alley. I lay out all my stuff the night before, which could change the morning of. It just depends on the weather and where we're at. And then I would do like a Peloton has a mobility. What is that called? Workout. Thank you. I don't know. We've done that in the hotel before. I don't know. I like going to dinner with friends, just having a good time. So that's probably pre-race. I definitely make sure I have electrolytes, and then I'm good to go. So
Do you eat anything before? Anything special? Or do you try to?
it just depends on where we're at.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I mean, if we're at home, probably pizza. And then if we're,
Pre-race?
dinner.
Oh, okay. Sorry.
Oh, you meant morning of?
Morning up.
Oh, so something I learned on the podcast was the go-go applesauce.
Okay.
But now it has electrolytes in it. So Jennifer Wilson, who was on here, she told me about that. So I will take one of those. And then for a longer race, would be a piece of toast, peanut butter. Got to have peanut butter. So
Favorite
Yeah.
food group is peanut butter. Of course.
Or what about a post-race routine?
well, if it's in years past, I definitely want to change into something else because I'm either sweating or it's cold. There's no really like, hey, yeah, let's enjoy being in our clothes. So might want to change, and then it's going to be hang out with friends, definitely hydrate again, and stretch.
Go get a coffee.
Go. That's true. You're right. That's my go
your-
meal is the iced coffee, and if it has peanut butter,
Even better.
even better.
Yeah.
We found some really cool coffee shops.
We have.
Yeah.
You know.
And it all started with running with our group.
Yeah.
Yeah, is getting a coffee
We'd
after.
always run before and go to
Mhm.
cafe
Coffee. Yeah.
afterwards.
Mm-hmm. So really, that's your fault.
I don't understand. I do believe you're the one that started the running group first.
I do believe we said coffee. So
Either way, you can never do wrong with having coffee after a run. So what is your favorite running item? One thing you can't leave the house without.
definitely my chorus.
Yeah.
I like my chorus watch a lot. I would also say a good hat. So I'm pale skin,
Mhm.
and so I sunburn pretty easy. So a good hat for sure.
Speaking of bad influences, you're the reason why I got the Coros Pace. And then now you have the Coros Pace 3. And you mentioned on one podcast that there came out with a new style,
The retro.
the retro.
Mhm.
And if you're willing to sell that Coros Pace 3, then you could use that.
Mhm.
I-
Are you
I'm
wanting
sure
my
I can
Coros
find
Pace
a
3?
buyer for the Coros Pace 3.
Willing and dealing on this.
All right, for
podcast.
real. Hey. Done. You just let me know you want to check
Great.
it out
Don't
after.
edit that part. Okay.
All right. How about favorite running shoes? That always seems to be a hot topic on your podcast. So, do you have a favorite running shoe?
No, I will admit, I have a shoe wall. I will admit, I like shoes. I will admit, I'll try anything. So I do tend to go back towards Saucony. Right now, I'm in between a Saucony Speed, which is really cool because I'm not fast, but they make me feel fast. And then the other is Topo. And then I'll mix in something else. So it just depends on what the distance is. I'm a firm believer in rotating shoes. I do have to run in a lower drop shoe because I'm a really heavy heel striker, and so I get bad shin splints if I run in a higher drop. So I do try to keep it below an 8 for the
Okay.
drop.
And then while you're out for your long runs, what do you like to fuel with?
So the Go-Go apple sauce, and then there is also spring gel. Again, podcast Lance told me about that, and he let me try one out and absolutely loved it. I have to be careful with what I eat because I do have digestive issues. And so I try really hard to make sure that this is going to go well for me. So I get to alternate between those, and they seem to work well. But I'm always willing to try anything. So I like having running friends because I text you guys and I'm usually like, hey, have you tried this or heard this? And we usually do. We usually try stuff out together. So
I would say another good thing about the podcast, I've tried a bunch of different brands. I've always had things that I've stuck with. but
Mhm.
Learning from other people, I'm willing to try anything.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
know,
Yeah, I agree with that.
either it works
Mhm.
or not. So,
Mhm.
but you don't know until you try. it.
Yeah, absolutely. And
Learning.
yeah, and how did they find these products? Because some of those products I would have never even heard of before. So I do like ordering from the feed, which
Mhm.
they have an app, which is terrible, but I love ordering from the feed. because they have discounts. They'll have specials and stuff. And so I'll order from them. So
Currently downloading that.
you can get a $15 store credit.
Really?
Yeah. Yeah, it's amazing. And sometimes it'll just pop up and it'll be like, hey, congratulations, you have a $15 store credit. Yeah.
You know, so I'd never heard of.
Neither have I.
It's amazing.
All right, Allison, do you have a favorite running memory?
Yes. So I have two. Okay. Am I allowed to say two?
Absolutely.
Okay.
It's your podcast.
I had to.
So the first one, I wasn't actually running, but it was at Battleship 12K
Of course.
this past year. And Gray had been training super hard for this race. His training was on point and he was doing a great job. And he's always been there for my finish lines. And this was a huge deal. This was the furthest he would have ever ran. And he only signed up because of the podcast. But 2 days prior, he had also sprained his ankle during a basketball game. And so I was like, dude, you're running this. So we worked on it, taped it up really well, and he PR'd it. His 5K and 10K, he did fantastic. But I knew I wasn't going to be able to beat him. I also had been injured. About a month prior, I took a really hard fall during a workout and thought I might possibly have a fracture. And so everything was painful no matter what I did. So I reached out to my friends at Fresh Junkie and I said, I know I'm supposed to run this as an ambassador, but can I be there at the finish line? And they were like, absolutely, we would love that. And then my friend Willie, who just love him, he messaged me and he was like, hey, Michelle, his wife was running. And he was like, can I be at the finish line with you? And I was like, let's go. We had the most fun. It was amazing. And we loved it. It was phenomenal. And we were attacking each other like, oh, we were not like, I'm going to get that friend. I'm going to get that friend. And I got to get this really cool picture of Michelle crossing the finish line and Willie giving her the medal. And then I got to give Pate his medal. I got to give you guys your medals. And so that to me was so much fun, cheering on my friends to come through the finish line. And Gray comes across and he looked good. And I'm trying to give him his medal. And he bear hugged me. and I could hear the emotion. I could hear how I knew what he had been through. And I knew what this race meant. And he knew this was my favorite race. And so for me to be there at the finish line and to give him his medal was just really special. And then we have a friend, Tom Tomahawk, who had come back from heart surgery. And this was his first race back. And he wasn't able to run full capacity or rocket. But I was undoing a medal and I saw him and I ran to go give him his medal because I wanted to be there. And so we got to hug and I got to tell him, dude, what an overcomer. And that was incredible. And just to be there to cheer on friends and to have a good time and to know that this race, what it represents, is just incredible. So that's my favorite running memory. And then last year at Women's Resource Center Run, Gray and I both placed in our brackets, which never happens. So we absolutely loved it. So I just wasn't expecting that. And it was a beautiful race. It was a beautiful day. And it was just a lot of fun after the race, too. We just hung out. And
That one was a fun
and you won a raffle prize.
I did that
Yeah.
one. Yeah, that one was a fun race. It was a good course.
Mhm.
I would recommend anybody to do that one.
Yeah.
It was a fun time.
So those are my two.
Okay.
Mhm.
What about, you touched a little bit on a pre-race meal. So what would you typically eat pre-race?
Depending on the distance, depends on possibly toast, possibly even a peanut butter and jelly sandwich, maybe. So it just depends. And I don't like to run with a lot on my stomach, though.
Okay.
So
And then after you finish your race, what is something that you're craving? So your post-race meal that you have to have besides an iced coffee.
I was going to say iced coffee. I'm usually not hungry. It usually takes me a while. And then I'll be like, man, then it'll kick in. And usually I want French fries,
Okay.
just French fries. So
Any particular French fries? Or does it matter?
I just like French fries.
Okay.
So I
Salty.
salty, yes.
Salty.
Yeah.
Mhm. Yeah. I guess I really don't have a preference, but
Okay.
yeah. Mhm.
Okay. Do you listen to running jams?
I do.
What would your playlist look like? We're all dying on that.
When I run, it is really a time of worship and prayer. But I have an epic playlist. One of the songs on there is Fearless by Jasmine Murray. It's an incredible song. Fighter, it's a great song. So it just kind of depends. But the music as a whole, I call them my Jesus jams. But there is 2 songs that kind of make me emotional. And that is because they are our wedding songs. And so Godsend by DC Talk, which is no longer a group, comes on there. And I think about Gray. And then Come What May from Moulin Rouge is on there. And so it's very much of that's who we are as a couple. And so not Moulin Rouge, but the song.
This just took a turn.
But the song, it's such a powerful song and it's got a good beat to it. But there are some amazing jams out there that I get in my own head. And so I have to listen to music. So it's all about a reminder that I'm running for something greater. I'm running for someone greater, whether it's a great time or a bad time. I've crossed the finish line and he gets all the glory in that. So
Awesome. So what about your favorite recovery tool, or how do you recover after a run?
So I really try to do the roller. I have that. And I use Peloton. I'll use that as their mobility, or a yoga one that they do. I'll do something like that.
Okay.
So those would probably be my recovery.
All right. How about cross training? I know you like to dabble in lots of different areas. So do you have a few favorite cross training activities,
yeah.
perhaps?
Wink, wink. One would be pickleball. Definitely like me some pickleball. It keeps me active, just keeps me going. A lot of sprinting. So I feel like that's my speed work.
Okay.
Is
Fair enough.
pickleball. And Meredith has a mean slam and a mean serve. So I try. She's so mean to me. And then my sister gave me a piece of equipment called the Tempo. And so it's AI personal trainer. And so it will have you do exercises and then it will correct your exercises. It will tell you what you need to work on. And so there's all different classes you can take. So right now I'm doing the strength one and it is killer. It's crazy. And we have a rower that I use a lot and we have Peloton. So I really, really like the rowing boot camp classes. Those are really good. I would be better at it if I would do it all more consistent.
Yeah.
But sometimes I just don't want to do it.
And that's okay.
But I will go play pickleball. Rain, shine, any day. Give me that. I can do that.
Rest is recovery, and that's
Yeah,
okay.
absolutely. Yes, absolutely.
So what is your worst race?
Well, that's going to be two of them. One, I said I would never do again, and it's Cultivation Nation Triathlon. It was horrible. Absolutely. I PR'd that race, one of my fastest PRs for sprint tries, but it's in Wiggins, Mississippi. And I thought, hey, I'm going back to my roots. No, I don't want to go back to my roots. It was absolutely horrible. I felt like my bike was going to fall apart. The roads were terrible. And you were swimming in a lake. I thought we were going to be swimming in Flint Creek, which is where I grew up as a kid, going to a water park. And no, it was terrible. And I didn't like that one at all. But I did say if a friend ever invited me, I would go back. But it would have to be a friend because I would never do that again. The other is going to be, I've already signed up for it again, but it's Louisiana Marathon. But it's the half, not a marathon. But this past year, around that time, found out that I didn't know that I'd be able to run again. And I had a little issue. And as it turns out, I need to add more electrolytes and compression. And so I want to go back and see if I can do a better time with that. So
Seek vengeance on it.
seek vengeance on it, yeah.
That's fair enough.
Mm-hmm.
All right, Allison, what advice would you give to someone that was just wanting to get started in running or walking?
I would definitely say create a support system or find a support system, whether it's an accountability group, whether it's saying like, hey, Kristen, Meredith, I want to go for a run. I need somebody to hold me accountable. Even if you don't want to go do that, at least you have somebody that you check in with. I would also say be fearless. Go ahead and sign up for that race. Go ahead and say, you know what, 6 months from now, that's what I'm going to do. Be fearless and show up to our running group that you've never met before. This past week, I was in Daphne and I got to go hang out with runners at Mancy's. I only knew 2 of the runners. It was packed. And I had a great time. I was like, wow, this is pretty cool. So be fearless. And again, give yourself grace when you need to, and then find that inner grind when you need to. And remind yourself to run for more. If running for yourself isn't enough, run for someone else. Run for something greater.
Mm-hmm.
So
good advice. You already mentioned that you tend to get in your head a little bit while you run. So you do run with running jams. Whenever the running jams don't give you the motivation, what is your mantra and what do you tell yourself to keep yourself going?
So there's a hashtag that I use, which is running for more. And so I'm running for more than myself. I'm running for my future self. I hope one day in the far, far future, I have grandkids. And I want to be the cool grandma that's taking my grandkids out for a run. I want my kids now to be able to say, hey, Mom, let's go hiking, or let's go run, or let's go climb that water slide, whatever it is. I want to be able to do that. So I remind myself to run for more. I also have a tattoo, speaking of be fearless, that says fearless. And so that's my mantra, is just to be fearless. So I have a tendency to let fear hold me back, and I get in my own head, and I hate letting people down. And so I have a fear of failure. And so, as we know, you have to fail, and you have to learn from that. And so I try really hard to tell myself, be fearless and run for more.
So a shameless Peloton plug, one of the Peloton instructors, she says you never fail. To fail is only your first attempt at learning. So that's stuck with me. So anytime I think I have failed, it is only my first attempt in learning. So
That's good. I like that.
Yeah, I was going to say similar, that there aren't really failures in life. There are successes and there's learning experiences. So you're going to grow from those failures.
I need y'all just to come with
Know
us.
better,
Speak that,
do better.
put that in my running jam.
All right. So do you have any goals, upcoming goals?
Yeah, so my goal is to cross as much as I can. I'm really excited. My daughter is going to be at Bama. Roll Tide. Yes, I am outnumbered. It's fine. There's a half up there and a 5K that we're stoked about. So I'm really excited. We've gotten to go up there and run, and it's absolutely amazing. So I'm really excited to be part of that. Check out the Wagners. They have a running club up there. So my goal is just to keep going, just to keep running, be fearless in what I do, really just to keep going. I was really hoping to do all the Fresh Donkey races this year, but North Shore is the same weekend as Family Weekend at Bama. So can't be at two places at one time. But I do want to do as many Fresh Donkey races as possible. So that's a huge goal of mine. And I don't run for time anymore. I would love to be able to say that, but I've had to learn that my body can physically only do so much. And so I need to be able to recover, and I need to be able to say, hey, we're gonna be able to walk the next day, and we're gonna be able to have fun. I said I would never do another marathon, but I haven't decided if it's before I turn 40 or before I turn 50 that I might want to do another one. So we'll see. Again, it would be at the end of the pack, but my marathon was in the midst of COVID, so it was virtual. So I didn't have that crowd support. I didn't have that feeling of crossing the finish line. I had my family and Fusaklis.
it's like follow the last person to cross the finish line at a marathon.
A marathoner.
A marathon.
That's right.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Okay.
You're right. I know.
Okay.
So, but we'll see. We'll see. The reason why I don't want to commit is because before I turn 40, I don't know where my kids will be. And so I don't want to commit to something with training wise. And my kids are like, hey, I'm going off to wherever and do big things. And so I want to be able to be there for them as well as they're transitioning into adulthood,
Sure.
which is wild.
So what is your favorite length to go and run?
I like the Battleship 12K length. So I like a 12K. For a race day, I think that's a good amount. I think that's also why I like Double Bridge, just because it's 10 miles. You're like, okay, it's not quite a half. And if you can do what Battleship, the 12K is what, 7.8? Yeah, so it's okay. I could keep going. But training wise, I like a good 4 to 5 miler. I like hitting that. So you feel like you've done something, but it's a good distance. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So when you aren't running, what fuels you? What are you passionate about?
Pickleball. Definitely playing some pickleball. Definitely going out with friends and playing pickleball. We talk a lot of smack to each other. It's a lot of fun.
I can believe
We
that.
did.
Yeah.
We do.
We love each other, but we
Yeah.
We do. Yeah.
A lot of trash talk.
I love so much. And then I'm on the board of 2 nonprofits. One is Stopping Trafficking, which they're a local organization here that obviously is trying to help end human trafficking. And they try to also help educate families we're in the world of internet. Everything's online. And so They try to teach students and parents what to look for, how to be safe online. And so that's huge. The other is Fighting with Hope, which is chemo boxes. And my friend Emily King, that at a really young age was diagnosed with colon cancer. And so she created out of her struggle, out of her hardship, a box of things that got her through chemo, still get her through chemo. And so she created that. And so I was extremely honored and terrified when they asked me to be on the board because I don't know what to do, but other than just to tell people, hey, there's these organizations out here that are making difference. I like to say I wasn't created to make a change in the world. I was created to help my friends be the change in the world. So I have a loud voice, and that's why I say the Lord gave me a loud vocal, is to be loud for things like this. I'm also part of Port City Pacers and try to help out where I can with volunteers and being a mom and watching my kids chase their dreams, watching their run stories grow, which has been so much fun. And as they're continuing on, it's been really cool. So I think that would be what fuels me.
Any final words of wisdom?
To run your story. Obviously, we're in the midst of Olympics, which has just been absolutely phenomenal. And the underdogs that we've gotten to watch who've represented our country, they didn't give up. And I think one of the coolest people that I've heard from has been Cindy McLaughlin-Leverin, who's my ultimate favorite. Just love her. But somebody asked her last night, how did you race this? And she said, my coach told me to race it just like I do at practice. So she said, I ran my race. She ran it her way. She wasn't looking to the left and looking to the right. She was just looking straight ahead. And all I could think about was run your race, run your story. Nobody can run Meredith's story or Kristen's story, but Meredith and Kristen. And I can only run Allison's story. So don't be afraid to run it.
Well, as of this recording, we are 95 podcasts in.
Wow!
We're getting close to 100, going on almost 2 years.
Yeah.
And I would like to say, on behalf of your Patreon supporters and all of your listeners, thank you for what you do, you and Gray. And I think you have made a difference. And I think all of your listeners and your Patreon supporters would agree with that you have made the difference.
Oh. Well, thank you guys. And thank you for supporting the podcast. It's one thing to say I have this vision and this goal, but it's another for people to come alongside you. It does cost to put on a podcast. But Gray and I, we sacrificed for a while. And then Kristen was our very first Patreon supporter. And just to have friends come along. When you get that email and it's like, you have a Patreon supporter. I'm like, I know that person, And it's just amazing, the community. And yes, it's runner story, but we believe it belongs to the running community. And so the stories are incredible. They matter. And it's an honor to be the platform that it is. We got told whenever we interviewed the dynamic duo, Ross and Andrew. So just to know that they used their story from Runner Story to send it off to Boston and to Tokyo. That's incredible. And just to have people say, oh, I got to know this person on Strava through a Runner Story, that's pretty cool. So I thank you that people listen to the podcast. We wouldn't do this if the running community says we don't want this, then we won't do it. So we're thankful.
Well, to piggyback off what Meredith said, I think you're an inspiration to the running community. And how could I not support someone with a dream that's so passionate about everything that they do? So thank you.
No, well, thank you guys.
Wow, what an incredible journey. I hope you enjoyed listening to Allison's run story as much as I did. Wasn't it inspiring? Before we wrap up, I want to take a moment to wish my wife a happy anniversary. Allison, I love you. I'm so proud of you. And I know your father would also be just as proud of the amazing force for good that you've become in this community. I also want to share a quick tribute to my sister Jamie, who passed away from leukemia. I remember that before she got sick, she would skip the small talk and simply say, "Tell me a story." This was a special way for her to connect with a stranger on a deep level and to make lasting connections with those around her. I'm deeply grateful that Allison followed that holy hunch and has carried on Jamie's legacy by inviting people who are often strangers, to share their stories. Allison, thank you for keeping Jamie's spirit alive and honoring her through this podcast. I also want to extend our gratitude to Mars Hill Church for providing a quiet and welcoming space where we can record this podcast. Their support has been invaluable, and we're so thankful for a place that believes in the power of these stories. Of course, Allison always thanks Gaillard Tech Services, my entrepreneurial business where I do all kinds of tech-related things, including building websites for clients. If you know of someone who's in need of a website, please reach out to me through social media or through my website at gaillardts.com. I thoroughly enjoy editing the podcast, and in case you were wondering, the editing time does take about 5 times the length of the podcast to complete. The tools and time that we put into this podcast do have cost, so if you've enjoyed the stories we share, please consider supporting us on Patreon so we can keep making a difference in our community. We're also looking forward to seeing all of you at Allison's favorite race, the Battleship 12K, which happens to be on her birthday this year, November 17th. It's going to be an incredible celebration, and we'd love to have each of you join us for this special moment. Thanks so much, Allison, for sharing your run story. You truly are a bright light in this community. And as Rachel Hodley-Clausen said, who was on our podcast before, she said, "You are a community weaver, and each connection that you make strengthens the fabric of our community, creating a beautiful tapestry of stories that intertwine in the most amazing ways." So until next time, go run your story, because every story needs to be heard.